we're going back to the very first thing that was ever covered on Media Mementos, the failed WB animated sitcom adaptation of the comic strip Baby Blues by Rick Kirkman and Jerry Scott. As stated in that video, this is one of the worst adaptations ever, but it still managed to work on its own. However, similar to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, it doesn't differentiate itself enough to be its own thing. So yeah, it's kinda complicated how to interpret this thing, but we're not here to discuss that, are we? We're here to discuss what happened behind the scenes, and let me tell you, it's a wild, wild ride. So get ready for Versus the Network number 205, what happens when the network doesn't want you for you. So it goes without saying that Baby Blues was a giant success. Much like Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes, it embraced wholesome, family-friendly humor. For those who are unfamiliar with the strip, let me explain it to you. Baby Blues is about Daryl and Wanda McPherson and their struggles in raising their 1, 2, and later 3 kids. The humor mostly revolves around family hijinks or kids say the darndest things, and while it's not everybody's cup of tea, I definitely like to read it every so often just for a little bit of a wholesome laugh. It's really easily accessible and hey, it's inoffensive, so what's wrong with it, right? And a lot of readers seem to think the same thing because it caught on like wildfire, and it kept growing and growing and growing, much like the family in the strip itself. A strip with this kind of growth and following would obviously catch the attention of some greedy television executives, and that's certainly what happened here. The WB network, which now no longer exists and kinda lives on as the CW, but not really, got in contact with Kirkman and Scott to make an adaptation of Baby Blues for prime time. The duo liked the idea and signed on, and right away the problems began. Kirkman and Scott had little to no involvement in the production of the Baby Blues show whatsoever. In fact, as you'll find out later, they were out of touch with so much going on that they actually had to fight to get one of the most drastic changes undone. This wasn't their fault, of course. They really wanted to be involved with the production of the show. It's just that WB didn't really feel the same way. They had their own vision for what Baby Blues should and could be, and they were not part of it. So what was this vision exactly? Let me put it this way. Around this time, WB mostly catered to people that were in the late teens to early adults category, so they wanted a show that fit that demographic. And right away you can tell that this is not a good fit. Baby Blues is meant for all ages, not necessarily an older teen demographic like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so what's going on here? Are they gonna kinda make it more adult or something? Yes and no. Well, yes, they were most certainly gonna make it adult, kind of fitting in with shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy, which apparently were their main inspirations for the show in the first place, but they were also gonna make some drastic changes to the story overall. First of all, Daryl and Wanda were gonna go back to having just one kid, Zoe. My guess is that they were going to add the other kids later on, kind of like what they do in the strip, where every so often they'll get just a little bit older and a little bit older, and then bam, another kid comes along. Whoops. I'm not really sure if they intended it to be this way, but knowing their aims for the show, I wouldn't be surprised. But having Zoe kind of takes away from the family element in Baby Blues altogether. Babies can't talk. Babies don't really have personalities when they're in TV shows unless they're fantastical creatures like Poof. This means that the WB would be able to put a lot more focus on the other characters aside from the McPherson family, because yes, that's one of the other changes they made to Baby Blues, giving them their own supporting cast, which on one hand, I totally understand. The show wouldn't work if it was just Daryl, Wanda, and Zoe. You need some neighbors, you need some friends, but what they put in the show? That was not a good choice at all. We got Busy, Zoe's babysitter, who's basically your stereotypical bratty teenage girl. We got Kenny, who's Daryl's lecherous coworker. And of course, we have the real main characters of Baby Blues, the Bittermans. Daryl and Wanda's crazy off-the-chain neighbors. It's through these characters that we would get the most infamous changes in the show. The bad language, the adult humor, the pop culture references, and so on. You know, all those things that the original comic strips stood against. The WB wasn't really concerned with making Baby Blues at all. They just wanted to make another version of The Simpsons or Family Guy, something adult, something marketable. The reason that they decided to make Baby Blues their adaptation of choice was because of one thing and one thing only: the name. They knew that Baby Blues was popular. They knew that it had a lot of merchandise and collection books. So they wanted to get that audience to come to the WB and maybe sacrifice their expectations for what this adaptation should be on the small screen. Little did they know that this was gonna backfire tremendously. People came to Baby Blues for a specific thing, and this show didn't provide it. In fact, it barely provided Daryl and Wanda at all. For one thing, the writers were so focused on these new characters that every single episode, I repeat, every single episode is more about either Busy or the Bittermans than Daryl and Wanda. They're always involved in the conflict. They're always involved in the resolution. We can't have a single episode where one or both of these groups are not pivotal players. And while Daryl and Wanda get more of the screen time, and I guess you could call it character development, it's pretty shallow, but I guess it's there. They don't get a lot of the funniest jokes. They don't get some of the more memorable sequences. They wanted to make their own characters shine, and then these other ones that were kinda there basically to trap the viewers, yeah, they're just along for the ride, who cares about them? But there were some warning signs popping up right away. WB Animation was going through a lot of budget constraints at the time. I'm not sure of the exact reason why, but according to this article from Animation World Network, it was because a lot of the WB animated shows were starting to fall apart. Hysteria was getting too expensive and ended up getting cancelled, and then of course there was Pinky Elmira and the Brain, which was a total disaster. That, and without the popularity of shows like Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain anchoring their network, they were hemorrhaging money. Which means that Baby Blues got its budget slashed. Now, did they see this as a bad sign and decide to give up? Nope, they couldn't because of contracts, but did they at least reduce the episode count? Nope. Instead, they decided to outsource some of their animation to Rough Draft Studios. And it's because of this and a lot of other production mix-ups and trying to change up the formula to make the show more hip and with it, it ended up taking 5 years to make. No joke, no exaggeration. The time from the original pitch to the first airing of the first episode was 5 years. I guess it just had to be that cool that it had to wait all those years. Right? To really show you how out of touch with the viewers that the network was, they actually wanted the show's name to be changed from Baby Blues to Bluesville, further distancing itself from the original strip. But that's to be expected at this point, am I right? Which is kind of confusing for a number of reasons, because 1, apparently they thought that teenage women wouldn't want to watch a show with baby in the title. 2, they didn't even bother to tell the creators about it, and then the creators had to call the network directly to get the name switched. Citing my third reason for calling this stupid, the reason you adapted Baby Blues, the sole reason I might add, to basically clickbait your viewers into watching the show because it was attached to something popular. By removing the name Baby Blues, they would also remove the last connection that they had to the strip. Thankfully, they didn't end up going through with this, and decided to air the show as Baby Blues, and it aired in a mid-season run. And that's a very, very bad sign. If you don't know what a mid-season run is, then let me explain. Say you have this show called The Steve Bob Show, and it's supposed to be a really big hit, but it gets canceled because everyone hates it. So it ends up getting canceled and the rest of the episodes don't get aired. But what's gonna go in its time slot? You need to pick up something. That's where the mid-season pickup comes into play. It's something to fill up the schedule, and that's about it. They usually don't last very long, and they're usually not very good. Baby Blues was one of those, and the network decided to air 2 episodes each night. Whether that was to generate more viewership, to fill up space, or to get rid of the episodes as fast as possible, I can't really say. But what I can say is that it did very, very poorly. The viewership was low, people hated it, and the fans of the strip were enraged. Who would have guessed? A bunch of people coming to watch a family-friendly comic strip adaptation end up seeing something like Family Guy? And they're mad?
What a twist!
Yeah, what a twist.
And it goes without saying that the creators of the strip weren't happy either. So, after all this, after 5 years of production, after all this work into making these original characters, after outsourcing half the episodes to another studio, the show was canceled without airing all of their episodes, and keep in mind they only had 13. So the show was that much of a failure that they couldn't stick it out for 13 episodes, and even then, they were airing 2 a night. So technically speaking, they couldn't even stick it out for 6 to 7 weeks. In fact, the Christmas episode, which was supposed to be the pilot, never even aired on the WB at all. The rest of the episodes aired for the first time on Adult Swim years later. That's where it ended up finding a small audience of people that thought it was decent. No one was really super big on the show, and it ended up fading away from Adult Swim after a few years. And that was the end. Yeah, the writing was snappy and fun sometimes. Yeah, the theme song was the Barenaked Ladies hit It's All Been Done Before. But this wasn't Baby Blues. And if you don't mind me saying, the network was crazy to ever think a stunt like this would work. This has been said time and time again, even by myself. If you wanted to make a raunchy, adult animated sitcom that didn't push the boundaries too far but still was adult enough to get the PG rating, why did you sandwich it in with Baby Blues in the first place? Especially when you consider that out of context, the writing could be pretty good. They had the talent, they had the means to make something work. They just took this strip and slapped it on and then made it awful. It's also worth noting that the WB was so overconfident that this show was going to be a hit that they ordered a second season. In fact, by the time that Baby Blues Season 1 got pulled from the network, the episodes were almost done. I'd talk more about this here, but I already did in another video called What Happened to Baby Blues Season 2, which since that video, I found out that everything I said in that video turned out to be right. So yeah, go check that one out for the full story. But as it stands, what can you, the aspiring creator, do to prevent your creation from getting destroyed like Baby Blues? All you can really do is fight for some creative control. I don't know what happened in the original pitch meeting, but I can tell you that Kirkman and Scott did not walk away with creative control. Otherwise, this big ol' mess would not have happened. Also, it's worth noting that the creators of the Baby Blues show, not the strip, they also got jerked around by the network. Remember, they got their budget slashed. They had to outsource some of their episodes to Rough Draft Studios. They got aired as a mid-season pickup, 2 episodes a day, and then not even being able to finish their full season. Sadly, if you're in that position, there's nothing you can really do to defend yourself. By that time, you're at the mercy of the network's airing schedule, and if it doesn't work in your favor, then, oh well. You're the only one that's gonna stand to get hurt, and more often than not, the network doesn't care. So no matter which way you slice it, Baby Blues was a disaster through and through. This just goes to show you that clickbait shows, whether they be current or past, never work out well. Well folks, thanks for watching the video. What'd you guys think? What do you think of Baby Blues if you've seen it at all? And what do you think of the story behind the scenes? Comment below and let us know because we're always excited to hear what you guys have to say. Real quick, I'd like to thank our Patreon executive producers, Leaf Razor, Valkyria, Whoopdoo, Michaela Bellamy, MD the Dude, Blackjack, Nightingale Wednesday Nightmare, Unkale, and Manny Paradas. If you too would like your name read at the end of every Media Mementos video, then consider donating to our Patreon, which, by the way, has a link in the description below. And now, dear friends, it's time for the comment of the day. Who's ready? I'm ready. And today's comment of the day goes to Just Another Poppet. Dinosaurs finale also works because the show, while still having lots of wacky dinosaur sitcom antics, did tackle heavy subject matters with tact from time to time. So ending off the series with a green Aesop about the dangers of pollution and climate change doesn't feel entirely out of left field. Alf, on the other hand, was mainly a simple, wacky sitcom that occasionally had a more mature episode, like one of the Christmas specials, but those were few and far between, I'd say. Plus, from what I recall, the first part of the finale is still the same lighthearted antics that the show is known for, so the ending would have definitely been a huge swerve for them, even if the plan was always that it'd be a two-parter. I completely agree. Of course, we talked about Alf's big tonal change at the end of the series, but I agree, that's another reason why the Dinosaurs finale worked. It was a comedy, but it also had some serious elements, so they could get away with something like that, but Alf? Not really. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you guys next time!